Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Bugs That Bite, Sting, or Taste You, Part 2. Part 1 went over so well that we decided to have a Part 2. And if you are interested, if you missed Part 1, it is on my Facebook page, and it is also on Hernando County Government YouTube. So available to watch all the bugs we talked about the first time. This morning, I have my guest, Dr. Bill Lester is joining us today, and also Karen Mojica from Mosquito Control. She's going to pop in at the end. She's helping me out with logistics today, but she's going to pop in the end and tell us what's the buzz with Mosquito Control. I will never stop saying that, Karen.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I am Lilly Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities for the water department. Here comes Buddy. This is my email here. You will see Dr. Lester's email later on in the program, and we're going to answer questions because I'm sure you're going to have a lot after the program. So that is really why I have the doctor entomologist around. He's going to talk to us, but I know he's going to be best to answer your questions at the end as well. If you would like a PDF copy of this program, email me. That's the best way to get it. The chat kind of disappears. My email's in my face. It follows me around on my phone. So I will see it and send you a PDF of this, which would be helpful for the resources we have at the end as well. So let's get started. We're only covering a few of the insects that you run across as a Floridian. And this one, I'm putting it first because it was probably one of the first insects my family ran across as brand new Floridians in June of 1978. I think we ended up here like around June 17th. Yes, I remember the date. I'm weird that way. And by that first week, my mother got to experience Lynx Memorial Hospital's emergency room in Brooksville at the time, due to her first encounter with fire ants. She's one who had a lot of allergies to poison ivy and bee stings and all of that. So her first encounter with fire ants turned, into swelling and an infection and all that. So there are people who have, pretty severe reactions to it. Now we have, if you get yourself some antihistamine or something, it usually helps take care of things. But let's talk about fire ants. They did kind of move here from another place. Dr. Lester can tell you, with the nursery trade and with various other ways that invasive exotic species of all kinds get here, ballasts of ships and all sorts of ways. But they're here. They've been here for quite a while. And they do prefer open, sunny areas. That's not to say that if you have a very shady yard that you would have no fire ants. But if you notice, like the open fields or very sunny places, they do seem to prefer those. This one I want you to take note of, this note number 2 here. They can have one or multiple queens, and they're not territorial. That is something that's going to come up again later. So make note of that. They can have multiple queens. They're not territorial about it. Those women get along in the same place. They generally, you'll find their mounds that we're used to seeing, but that doesn't mean that they would turn away a rotting log. Under pavement and buildings, you see them a lot, like in the cracks of your sidewalks, kind of scurrying about there. This is where they become a major problem inside electrical equipment or utilities. If the infestation is severe and it has not been taken care of outside, sometimes they're going to find their way indoors. That's not their preferred area. Remember, they like the open, sunny areas. But it's been known that they have found their way indoors, and then that's a pretty major problem too, because they may be up in the walls or some issues like that. I know from my county career, I spent 2.5 years at the Department of Public Works, so it was not unusual for them to make a home in those traffic light cabinets that you probably pay no attention to, but if you buy every traffic light, there is like a beige kind of cabinet there that helps control that. Sometimes they make their home in there, and that can be problematic for the workers. Here where I live in the Royal Highlands, I know people often encounter, and I think this happened to us too, the points on our well kind of fried. And it could be because, ants have made their way through there as well, and they can cause those things to happen. So, they are definitely a nuisance. But fire ants are omnivorous. They will eat anything, but anything, it has to be liquid. They will eat plants, other insects, oils, and sugars, but they are only able to ingest liquids. Again, pay attention to that. They're only able to ingest liquids. This is going to come up again later. But what's kind of cool, in many species, most species, the adults take care of the food situation for the children to be able to eat. Well, this is kind of different. The larvae actually regurgitate the food they eat, so it becomes in a liquid form available for the adults. So if you learn nothing else today, you can know that you learned that interesting fact there. So I'm sure, you're probably not all that interested in their lifestyle and their life habits. You just want them gone out of yours. And that can be a tricky situation. I know I always say my neighbor and I, we play fire ant chess all the time. He moves them to my yard, I move them to his yard, and we're like, okay, now, your move. But for a yard situation, University of Florida recommends is some sort of bait situation. It is really the best way. It takes a little bit of time, but a bait product doesn't have to be one label over another label. Any kind of bait product that's eventually going to get it down to the queen or queens, will have the most effect. You will find in some of the University of Florida's publications, they talk about broadcast treatment. And Florida Friendly Landscaping doesn't recommend broadcast treatment of your yard. When University of Florida is talking about that, they're like trying to control it in acres and acres and acres and acres and acres on a farm or something like that. And it's one part of a process. But for your small yard, even if it's a big yard, but the area of your yard, it is best to start with that second part of that process, which is focusing on the mounds and the mound control. And that way, because one of the best effective ways of controlling fire ants is to allow our native ants to take up that niche. Always with Florida Friendly Landscaping, killing everything out in your yard is a no-no. That's not what, that we encourage. So concentrate on who you want to kill. Basically, you don't want to kill all of the ants in your yard. We do have native ants that don't bite you and are doing, a great service. So concentrate on just the ones that are a problem. So you mound treat with those bait treatments. And the best thing I can tell you to do is to follow the label. Do exactly what the label says. It's written there that way for a reason. It's been scientifically researched. More is not better. More is wasting your money and putting more pesticides out there for no reason. Now, there are organic pesticides that they offer. to control fire ants, and organic being, kind of interesting word. Dr. Lester will tell you that all the time, and we'll go through some of these sources that are organically derived, but they're still pretty deadly. Now, boric acid and or diatomaceous earth, they did tests and research with it, and it will kill ants. But as far as their effectiveness to get rid of all of the colonies in your yard, that has not been consistently demonstrated. So perhaps it's something you want to start with and see how it goes. I think what it might end up doing is annoying them and moving them somewhere else again, so you can play chess with your neighbor. But so that's not, if you have a real small infestation or you just want to try, the most environmentally friendly thing first, go ahead and try it first. But if you follow a lot of the bait treatments according to the label, it should also be pretty safe. Now you can get some insecticides that are derived from botanical sources, such here as this rotenone, nicotine sulfate, D-limonene, or pyrethrins. Again, yeah, they're all derived from plants, but that doesn't make them really any less deadly. I mean, we know how deadly nicotine is. So even though it's derived from a plant, but just you still have to treat it like an insecticide. Don't get don't get careless with it, because it still can be pretty deadly. We're going to go over that D-limonene again in another slide. And also Dr. Lester has recommended for other things before the spinosad, which is actually a bacterial fermentation. If you're looking for organic ways to do it, always look for this OMRI on the label. It's organic. And I forgot what the M stands for, but Dr. Lester probably knows, but it's a Review Institute.
Material Review
Thank you.
Institute, I think.
Thank you. Organic Material Review Institute. Make sure that's on the label if you want to make sure that you have an organic product. There are physical treatments you can do that UF recommends. Now, this excavation, you want to put baby powder on the shovel that will discourage them from traveling up the shovel to you. I'm not sure about this excavation because I'm not sure where you put it. UF does mention in their publications excavation as an option, but it kind of leaves you hanging. Like, where do you excavate it to? So I'm not, perhaps Dr. Lester can answer that later on. This mound drench, that's bringing back that D-limonene that I mentioned before, and it's a citrus oil. And I have read about this, and I read a newspaper article that a UF agent wrote in Leon County, and they had their own farm. And she found some good success using this, but it was a lot of work. It was repeated drenches with this product. Literally you drench the mound. And she said the best thing you have to do is get up early in the morning. And because that's when the queen or queens are near the top of the mound. And so that you can get the queen. And they did find some success with that. There's biological controls going on out there. I don't know that they are necessarily available to you, but I know that research is being done. I remember once years ago on King of the Hill, they covered these phorid flies, and that was actually the first time I heard about it and was taught about the phorid flies that they were studying in Texas. And like a lot of parasitic critters out there, wasps or flies, that's what these flies do. They go into the fire ants, they rip their heads off and implant their larvae inside. And so I heard there's been, I mean, that's not something that you can release in your yard, but it's being researched, and also a fungus out there that reduces the fertility of the queens. So the researchers are covering these and releasing these things so that over time we have less and less and less of a problem with the fire ants. But just remember, if you manage somehow to kill all of the fire ants in your yard, just wait a month and they're going to come back. It is an ongoing process, and you can keep it under control, but you do have to stay on top of it. And I don't think it is as much of a problem as it used to be even 15 years ago. So I think some of these biological things must be helping. They do love disturbed soil. So if you have a fairly new home and you have fill dirt in there, that's all so nice and loose and, great for them to start up a home in. So it's probably going to be, one of the first things you're going to have to deal with. Here are some things that is guaranteed not to work. I was watching a program last week. Been watching a lot of programs from Pinellas County. So if you go to their Facebook page, Pinellas County Extension Office, I especially like the programs by James Stevenson. He works at Brooker Creek. Lucky guy. So if you ever get a chance to go down there and see Brooker Creek, it's beautiful. But he is a fantastic teacher. So if you ever see any classes available, if it's going to be about backyard bugs or insect biology or things, frogs, anything, he's a fantastic instructor for it. And I really enjoy listening to him. So one of the things he was talking about last week is the things that are guaranteed not to work on your anthill. Club soda, he didn't address that one, but that one was in the UF publication. So nope, just gonna get it wet. Grits, we hear that one a lot. We hear grits a lot. And let's go back, what I told you to remember. Where is it? Only able to ingest liquids. Grits they don't chew on the grits and explode. And as James said, that would be cool, but it just doesn't happen. The most thing that you might be doing is annoying them. Or threatening because something happened to their mound, the stuff fell on it and they moved just to another spot, a little tiny bit away. That's an urban legend. It's not going to work. There may be people out there who say, well, it works for me. I'm glad, but it in the research and in the tests they've done, save your grits for yourself. You're in the South now, so eat those grits yourself. Soap or wood ashes, no. Shoveling mounds together, that is why I wanted you to remember up here. Can have one or multiple queens, not territorial. Shoveling mounds together is not going to start a fire ant war. It's going to build a bigger fire ant city. So that's not going to work for you. Also, now when it comes to, getting really crazy with these fire ants, first of all, I'm here to protect the groundwater. So, I'm not going to encourage any kind of chemicals or dangerous substances that can leach through our very loose sandy soil into our groundwater. And as James said, if you pour gasoline onto your fire ant mound and light it, you are absolutely guaranteed to take a nice trip to the emergency room. And also just the danger to yourself. The danger, maybe you might even have to be visited by our local fire department, who will be very unhappy with you, and you might get fined once your whole yard is on fire. Or even if none of those dramatic things happen, you have put a toxic substance into our ground to leach into our groundwater. And that is just overkill to get rid of these fire ants. So please use acceptable products and follow the label. UF does mention hot water. I stayed away from it because I don't want you to burn yourself and me be the cause of it. Plus, it's only a really temporary fix. And in a yard situation, you don't really have room to pour boiling water on a fire ant mound that's not also going to kill the turf around where you poured that, or your flowers in your bed or something like that. So stay away from that practice as well. Let's move from fire ants and move on to fleas, because that seems to be another issue. When you moved to Florida, you're not used to being here. And suddenly you're dealing with fleas that you hadn't really had a problem with before, or you have in your mind, I'm here in the winter, why are these fleas bothering me? Well, because it doesn't get cold enough to really keep their populations down. And you can see here, my little Mimi, this is what she feels about, about fleas. They do breed in large numbers where pets and animals live, especially in our hot, humid state here. And why it becomes a problem is the animal or the dog's skin from scratching it so much can be infected. And you know, it's not just the fleas on them, the fleas do excrete. So they may be scratching the excrement into, you know, where they're scratching, and then terrible problems with infections. And some dogs have even allergies to it, or if it's a severe infestation, they can start losing their hair. It can look like mange. And some fleas can be intermediate hosts for the dog tapeworm, and there's lots of other issues with it. The best way to handle fleas in your home is actually to treat the pet. That is probably 80% of what you have to do when you have fleas in your home. And there are different ways to do it. You know, consult your vet for the best way for you. I will tell you that I decided for maybe the past year, maybe a little longer, that I didn't want to give my dogs the oral medication anymore. And I was trying the topicals, also that diatomaceous earth, which then I later read that doesn't really work because it's too humid in Florida. You know, putting on them like a powder, and it was supposed to like scratch their exoskeletons. What I can tell you is it worked for a little while, but then it stopped working. And so I got my poor puppies back on the oral medication, as well as, you know, doing cleanup and stuff. So they're happy now. They're laying over there quite contently and not scratching themselves. Because sometimes, you know, you just got to do what is best to get rid of those fleas. So that's the first thing, is to treat the animal with your pets, with your vet's advice, or your pet's advice. They may know, you know, but you have to do that cleanup. You have to control their sleeping areas, their bedding, their kennels, the carpets they lay on, the rugs they lay on, the mats, whatever it is. You can, you know, get sprays for that, or you can make sure you thoroughly vacuum, clean it well. When you vacuum up a flea infestation, and this is a step a lot of people miss and wonder why they can't get a hold of the flea infestation in their house. If you have a canister or an old-fashioned bag or something, if you have a canister, you want to dump it in a plastic bag, maybe a grocery store bag, you know, tie it up, throw it away immediately. As soon as you're done, you have to get rid of whatever collected that, because there are live fleas in there. And sometimes you have to go to the extent of steam cleaning and, you know, vacuuming up the infested furniture and cracks and things like that. Okay. And you can treat your yard, but as Dr. Lester says, you can't really sanitize the great outdoors. So it's best to start at the source. So while we're talking about such icky things, let's talk about ticks. And there's lots of different ticks. We're only going to cover 2 of them in this presentation. The brown dog tick. The tick is brown and it prefers dogs. It doesn't differentiate for a brown dog. It's the tick that is brown. And they're usually only on dogs. But the females can lay 1,000 to 3,000 eggs after engorging on some dog's blood. These blood suckers suck your blood. All of these do, for the same reason, to gain the protein to be able to lay eggs. That's basically what they're doing. And they have some small larvae, which they call seed ticks. And they can be so small on your dog that you don't see them unless they happen to all be gathered in mass. But what happens with a tick is there are different stages. They'll hook onto your dog, suck up some blood, fall off, go through another instar, find another dog or the same dog, hop on, do the same thing several times. Now these ticks can live 200 days without a blood meal. So sometimes, we'll hear from snowbirds saying, but I left that house for months at a time. Why didn't the ticks die out? There you go. That's one reason why. Why didn't the fleas die out? They can kind of hibernate as well. Or there's another kind of worse answer to that, is that they are finding a blood meal while you're gone. And that's probably on rodents. So that's a whole other issue. But the ticks, when you're trying to steam clean or vacuum to get rid of them, they can hide behind baseboards and window casings, curtains, bookcases, inside furniture, under rugs. You just don't want the infestation to get that far. But if it does, you have a lot of cleaning up to do. Here's the American dog tick. They're found in the Americas and they prefer dogs, but they will feed on other warm-blooded animals. It's not that they're looking for American dogs. They don't pay attention to the dog's accent. That's just what they are called. These are some of the ticks that you worry about when you go outside in the woods, like what's behind me. And these things can wait around 3 years to complete their life cycle. So, we wait for them to die out, and sometimes that just doesn't occur. What can happen if your poor doggy, ends up with a tick? It can cause heavy infestations, can cause lack of vitality. This particular one rarely transmits to humans, but it can carry the Rocky Mountain spotted fever and these other diseases. And these diseases, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, in your dog as well. Now, there's other ticks out there that can cause paralysis in your dog, like pretty quickly. Like it's, engorging on your dog, and the dog can actually, its legs just don't work at all. And unless it is found and removed pretty quickly, usually what happens is then your dog makes a complete recovery. But, if it's left on there, who knows, and that paralysis reaches up to, their brain, then you have some severe problems. So it's something to really, treat the animal, make sure that they have prevention measures and also a sanitation. Sometimes you have to do a lot of cleaning in your house. And this is one of Dr. Lester's puppies that wanted to join today's program as well. Now, if you are going to go out in the woods, there's different types of repellents out there to spray on, the deep woods off and all that kind of thing. If you find them on you, you want to remove them immediately. I don't know anybody who would say, oh yeah, well, that tick can stay there for a while. No, it's kind of a natural thing. You want to get rid of it with tweezers, but don't leave parts of it on your dog or on you because that's going to cause infections and problems. This sounds kind of gross, but you got to try and grab up near its mouth and its legs. And you may even want to see a tiny, tiny piece of your flesh or the dog's flesh to know you got all of it out there. If you have to enter a flea infested area, you want to keep, a bunch of clothes on you, shirts tucked in, pants inside of boots, things like that. Be checked as soon as you leave there. If there's areas where your dogs run, you want to keep those areas mowed and free of brush and things like that. As much as you can, exclude wild animals from their area. That might bring some of those ticks in. And again, for the control on your animal, of course, consult your vet for that. Okay, I have one more gross thing to talk about. Then we're going to let Dr. Lester get into it. Head lice. That's the only kind of lice I'm covering today, because the other kinds, body and otherwise, are more than I can handle. But unfortunately, I'm a mom. So, I have some experience in this particular issue here, as every mom probably has. Head lice. They are only a people problem. They are not going to be concerned with your pets or anything else. So that's good news about them. They are not a serious vector of disease unless it is such a severe infestation. I think we read on the news that they decided that was a cause of death of a neglected child somewhere. I don't remember where, but somewhere here in this country. And you're going to say, how does that cause death? The anemia from the severe infestation, and then anemia causes problems with heart rhythms. So in extremely severe situations, which may have been an issue 100 and 200 years ago, when they really didn't know how to get control of this. There's a theory out there that is actually what happened with Edgar Allan Poe, when he just died suddenly in a carriage. He had a lot of other issues too, and also we don't know, but some things that he wrote and complained about sounded like anemia. So they think maybe that was an issue there. We're going to stay ahead of it before it ever gets to that issue. But, and here's something I bet you never even thought about, all the scratching that you or your kids end up doing. Remember, again, just like the ticks, if they're in there, so is their feces. So you could be scratching some of the feces into yourself. That's not something you want to do. And severe infestations can cause you to feeling tired, irritable, and feverish. Hence the word lousy. I feel lousy. Those who've had children and had to deal with it in your household, you can feel tired and irritable just from trying to take care of it. So we know what feeling lousy also feels like. They are true insects. They got 6 legs. They use those legs to hold on to a single strand of hair. So that's why this washing with shampoo is just like, whee, water rushed over me. So what? But they don't have wings, nor do they have jumping legs. They only have claw-like legs. Therefore, they don't jump 3 feet. They don't fly over. It has to be, some pretty close contact, either with the person or with the same bedding, or with sharing costumes, sharing hats, sharing brushes, head-to-head contact, which we know happens with children. So that's how it spreads. The good news is these guys can't live away from humans more than 24 hours. So that's good news too. So maybe, you left your house for the weekend and treated your kids somewhere else where they weren't there, you wouldn't have to worry too much about them reinfesting inside the house. but the nits are the real problems. So how do we prevent this? Again, we don't share those personal belongings. We preach that to our kids. I'm wondering, Florida schools are open, but in the other states that aren't, I wonder if there is a whole lot less incidences of head lice this past year. If you know you're dealing with a lice situation and you have treated it, just remember some of those eggs could rehatch. So you want to keep the clothes that they were wearing, the clothes that you were wearing, the bedding, everything. You want to keep that washed, and you got to do those inspections of their hair, and that takes quite some time. Let's see, we know kids like to be right up against each other, and that's how some of this travels around. So here's that inspection. A good light and a hand lens, especially if it's lighter hair. I became an unfortunate expert in finding it when my kids were young and in school. First clean the hair so there's not all whatever kind of other stuff that you might find that you might confuse it with. Is this lice or not? Remove the tangles and then divide into sections. The metal knit combs work a whole lot better than plastic. And anyone who's had contact, any close family member, you want to treat them as well. Probably everyone in the household. My husband never got it. Grew up, he's a native Floridian, never had it as a child, never got it when our kids, brought it home. Some people are just lucky like that, I guess. But all the bedding, all the clothes that they've worn, if they have a favorite jacket and it can be washed or whatever, the hoodie that they never take off, force it off of them, wash it in hot water. If it's something that can't be washed, don't forget their stuffed animals and things like that. If it can't be washed, then put it in a big garbage bag for at least 10 days. And that way, so that the lice die out if they don't have a blood meal, and then vacuum them, really well. Now, when we get to treatment of these things, you can use the doctor's advice, but you want to follow the label. Again, more is not better. This usually has a pyrethrin in it, which is a chrysanthemum derived, pesticide, really, to kill them off. But sometimes you have to rotate medications, like use Nix this time and Rid this time, or whatever, Vermouth or whatever other products are out there. Sometimes you have to switch them up, but not together. Don't put them together at the same time. And if you use one of these, don't use conditioner, or try not to wash your hair for 2 days. Make sure it gets in there. This is the most important part. You have to nitpick. I know your kids think you nitpick all the time. You have to literally nitpick. If you don't get those nits out, then you're not going to solve the problem. Again, like I said, use this metal combs, have the comb, some hot soapy water, because you're going to get some, put them in there to drown, and get comfortable. When I had to do this as a mom, we put on a movie or two. I had 2 girls with long hair. If they want to keep that long hair, you're going to be there a while. When my son was young, it was an easy fix that involved clippers. But if you want to keep the hair, you're going to be there involved for quite a while. And clean that area all up. You're sitting on the couch, vacuum it all up, treat everything. Just remember that the nits, 20 to 80% of them are going to survive the topical treatment. So you got to pick them out, and you got to use repeat applications. Now, you can go on the internet and find all sorts of answers. Whether or not they're any good, I don't know. What I found when I still had kids at home was that I eventually had to do a mixture of your shampoos that you can buy in the drugstore, as well as home remedies. The combo of the two finally seemed to help. So like mayonnaise or, something like that, a suffocant, if you want to use that, put on a lot. Do not use anything dangerous like kerosene or anything like that. Then, put a cap on them for several hours. Probably not overnight because, well, they could suffocate if they're small, but also it could slip off and then you just have a mess everywhere. Now the commercial products, you want to leave in this stuff. You want to make sure that you get all out, and it's still down to the nitpicking to control this situation. Okay. Now I made this slide for you, Dr. Lester, from the bug doctor. Aren't you happy? I found a picture of you on the internet here.
Well, thank you for that truly disgusting presentation there, Lily. Let's see if I
You're
can kind of
welcome.
keep the momentum going here with my topics.
All right. Everyone is probably going.
Oh, we're going to be scratching for the rest of the day, I think.
Yes. All right, let's start with you with let's go to a fantastic topic here next. I think we just lost like half the people. They're like, I can't take anymore.
No, they're staying on. So, I mean, this is all important information and we don't want to terrify people. And something that I'm going to stress, especially with anything that may be indoors and especially outdoors, you can't sanitize the great outdoors. I mean, you can't go in your yard and kill half of everything and still welcome half of everything. It doesn't work quite like that. Some of these things are parts of the natural environment, but you need to be aware of them and be able to identify them and then know some different control methods and exactly how, is it dangerous? How dangerous is it? But I get to start with bed bugs and blood-sucking cone noses. And I don't know who coined that common name for them, a blood-sucking cone nose. That's a scary name. But bed bugs, I mean, have been with us for thousands of years. The little saying, good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. That's a very old saying. So they've been with us for a very, very long time. They were not much of a problem in the United States until in just recent years. We've seen a big resurgence in bed bugs. It's become a big problem in certain big cities, problem with certain hotels. And the problem is that if you or I go and stay at one of those, let's say we go to New York and stay in a hotel that has them, and don't think they're only at the cheap hotels and the nice hotels don't have them. That could be reversed. We could go and stay at the most expensive hotel in New York City and pick up bed bugs on our suitcase and bring them home. For me, that's bringing them home to Spring Hill and bring them into our house. And now we have an infestation or problem with bed bugs. So next slide. Oh, if you go back, let's talk a little bit more about bed bugs. Bed bugs are a problem and they're kind of difficult to control. A bed bug is an insect that has to feed on humans. It needs human blood. And there is a very, very closely related insect called a bat bug that if you look in a bat's nest or a bat roost, they feed on bats. So bat bugs feed on bats, bed bugs feed on human beings. Good thing about bed bugs is they do not vector any diseases. So you won't get a disease from being bitten by a bed bug, but if you do get bed bug bites, they itch and you're going to scratch them and the scratched area can become infected by a secondary infection. So for bed bugs, they're difficult to get rid of. Insecticides don't work very well on them because you have to actually find them and hit them with the insecticide. Bed bugs, if you wonder, well, where do they go during the day? I never see any bed bugs. They hide really well. They'll hide underneath the mattress, in the mattress. They hide around the bed frame. They'll crawl away and they like to hide behind baseboards. And they're very, very cryptic. They stay completely hidden during the day. So they're very hard to find and spray and control. But one thing they found that does kill them very well is heat. So if you can get the temperature above 115 degrees, it will kill bed bugs. So obviously, if you have to wash bedding, if you wash it on hot water, dry it on high, that's going to get it hot enough to kill anything that might be on it. A little more difficult to heat your house up that hot to kill bed bugs. Sometimes a bad infestation in a house, they may actually have to tent the property. So if you have a problem with bed bugs, you probably need to call a professional and get some professional help and control advice. But a
What
few
I
things you
do,
could do to help avoid them,
Yeah.
if you go and travel and stay in a hotel or anywhere else, when I come home, my suitcase doesn't make it further than the garage. I drop the suitcase in the garage, take the clothes out, wash them, take care of that. I make sure the suitcase is totally cleaned out, and when I bring it in, it gets stored in a closet. You don't want to be throwing suitcases on your bed or leaving them on your bed, either at your house or at the hotel. That's why if you ever notice, hotels give you that little rack that you set up and set your suitcase on top of it. Bed bugs can't get into your suitcase if you keep it on the rack. If you throw it on the floor, if you throw it in the corner, if you throw it on the bed bugs could get into your suitcase and you end up bringing them home. So we don't get too many bed bug questions at the office, but they are here and they can be difficult to control if you do have a problem. So if you do have a problem, contact us directly. We give you specific recommendations for that. So the next one, the blood-sucking cone nose, this is also called a kissing bug. And it is, with these insects, there's two very slightly different species. There's one that lives in North America, and the other one lives in South and Central America. The one in South and Central America is a vector for Chagas disease, which is a very bad disease that you could get. Trypanosoma cruzi, and trypanosoma is a microorganism, a little bit like malaria, so it's going to make you really sick. The the kissing bugs that are in North America don't carry that disease and they don't vector it, although I've read research where they inoculated them and they can carry it. So there have not been any reported instances of people catching Chagas disease in the United States. If you travel to South and Central America, you might catch it there and bring it back. But you don't have to worry about these insects spreading it from person to person here in Florida. And we do have them here in Florida. I've had a few people bring in samples to the office. It's a very attractive black and orange bug. The picture doesn't show just how orange it is. But what they do is they can crawl on you at night and they'll poke into you and they'll try to take a blood meal. I think the common name kissing bug came from they'll try to feed on you around your mouth, which is kind of disgusting, but technically they can do that. So that's how it got its common name kissing bug here. These insects are in the same insect family as assassin bugs and wheel bugs and other insects that are really, really good to have in your garden because they catch other insects and they take that mouth part and they poke into the insect and feed on its contents and help control insect pests that way. This one only wants to find people to poke into and feed on. So even though I have seen a few samples brought to the office that people have found either on a pet or in a shed or garage, or Stacy Strickland, our previous county extension director, brought in a sample he found in his garage, I think, before. They're out there, but they're not very common, and they're very, very rarely a problem in your house. You're not going to see them very often. If you ever do find them in your house, what you need to do is be very, very diligent about using a lot of caulk and plugging up all the cracks and crevices where things can come into your house, because that's usually the way that they're going to come in. But if you have cracks and crevices, there's a lot of other insects, ants, and many other things that are going to use that same pathway to come in. So caulk is your friend. Caulk around windows, doors, cracks, everything else to keep things outside and keep them from getting inside to where you are. Next slide. So chiggers, we get questions about chiggers, and of course they're very, very annoying for everybody. They're also called red bugs. And the funny thing is that they're not really insects or bugs at all. What it is a type of mite. So in humans, when they bite human beings or feed on them, it makes you itch really, really bad and causes raised red bumps that you're going to be very, very tempted to scratch like crazy. And you don't want to do that because when you scratch, you can open up those sores. And now that's a really, really good way for you to get some kind of secondary infection. So it can cause chigger dermatitis if you scratch too much or if you have a reaction to it. Like I said, it can cause secondary infections if you scratch too much. In other parts of the world, chiggers transmit scrub typhus. This was a really bad problem in Europe during World War I. Many, many people caught typhus and died from it, and it was transmitted by chiggers because they were living in trenches during World War I. But here, chiggers in Florida and chiggers in the United States do not carry typhus. So they are not vectors of diseases, but they can be a serious annoyance if they bite you. They tend to be very seasonal. So we could all go to the beach, to one of the beachfront parks one afternoon, and we get eaten up by chiggers. We can go back a few weeks later and there aren't any. Some people get bit by chiggers a lot. Other people, I don't get bothered by them too often, although occasionally on hikes, the chiggers will be bad. And they tend to chew up your ankles and underneath your arms really bad. If you use different kinds of pest repellents, something with DEET, that really helps to keep them off of you. If you have them in your yard, there is really no very good or recommended control. We generally, for all these different things that may be in your yard, years ago, people would go out there and just spray their whole yard with Sevin or malathion, but that starts to cause so many different problems and imbalances because it kills everything. Kills all the chiggers, kills all the fleas, kills all the beneficial insects, kills your lizards and many other things. It throws things out of balance so much that you're going to have an outbreak of some other kind of pest on your plants that you're going to call us about in a few weeks. Then you have an outbreak of something else that you call us about. And I've seen people, by spraying broad spectrum insecticides too much in their yards, throw things so out of whack that they start to have problems that nobody else has. And it becomes really, really difficult for us to give them good advice. They get on this downward spiral in their yard. We tell them just stop spraying and let things kind of rebalance out a little bit. So chiggers can be a problem. And let me throw in at this point, because we do have Karen who's going to come on at the very end here and talk about mosquitoes. If you have problems with little bugs biting you outside, if they're mosquitoes, contact Mosquito Control. If they're chiggers, or we have problems with midges, we have problems with black flies, there are a lot of little things outdoors that can bite you. So when somebody calls us and says, and we got a call just yesterday, I have fleas, I have fleas in my yard, what do I do? We ask them if they can bring a sample in or something for us to make sure that they're fleas and not black flies or something else, because all different pests have different controls. And if they get the identification wrong, we may recommend the wrong control that's not going to fix the problem that they really have. So if you ever have little bitey things outside, if you can catch them, bring them to our office. Doesn't matter how small they are. We have a microscope here so we can see what they are, and we could tell very quickly what it is, and then give you the correct recommendation to tell you how to control it. Because a lot of people out there are not really good at pest identification because they don't deal with it all the time like we do. Bring us your samples. We'll tell you real quickly what they are, and we can tell you what to do to help control them. So mosquitoes, send to Karen. All the other things, send to us. So spiders, people, and gosh, I saw this on Facebook just the other day. Somebody just put in a Facebook group, what kind of safe, all natural control can I get to spray in my yard to get rid of the bugs and the spiders? Or I think they had a problem with ants, to get rid of ants and spiders. I'm thinking, what kind of ants do you have? And you don't want to get rid of the spiders. Spiders are a very, very important part of the natural ecosystem outside of your house, and believe it or not, inside of your house also. Spiders are a little bit like lizards because all they do is run around and eat bugs and make babies. Spiders also, some of them spin webs, so spiders have to do even more work than lizards. They generally don't hurt anything. All spiders are technically venomous, but not all are poisonous. So all spiders are predators. They all eat some kind of other little living thing. None of them eat leaves or plants or bacteria or fungi. They generally eat other insects. So they provide a lot of free, very important insect control in your yard. Very few spiders are actually poisonous. We do have black widows, we don't have brown widows here in Florida, or brown recluse is what we don't have here in Florida. We do have brown widows and a few other spiders that you don't want to get bit by. But technically, all spiders are capable of biting you because they all have mouth parts that have to catch a small insect and chew it up to eat. So here's some pictures I took off a University of Florida fact sheet of very common outdoor garden spiders. Things like jumping spiders, orb weavers, the Argiope or banana spider in the upper right-hand corner there. By the end of summer, you probably see them in your yard. Very, very big spider, very, very big web. They're out there doing nothing but catching bugs all day long and helping you, keep your bugs under control. Lynx spiders, that's kind of on the left-hand side, right above where it says class Arachnida. And if you look at flowers in your garden, you're probably going to find them. They're like lime green or bright green, so they blend in really well with the leaves. And wolf spiders, like in the center here, wolf spiders generally don't make webs. They just crawl around and catch insects. So we do have house spiders here in Florida. Some of them can get very large. Some can get scary large. I've had people send me pictures of some big house spiders. Generally do what I do and leave them alone. If they're up in the attic, if they're in the garage, if they're out of your way, if the webs are not bothering people or causing danger to anybody, leave them be, because they help to keep insects under control in your garage, in your shed, and even up in your attic, up in your house. I don't obsess over trying to kill everything in my house or in my yard. I generally, if it's not a big, an imminent problem, I just kind of let it be. So spiders should definitely fall within that group. Kind of difficult to control, to identify spiders down to species. I am not really an expert on that. So generally spiders, let them be, don't mess with them. And the old advice, leave them alone and they won't bite you. Spiders are kind of the same. Leave them alone and they'll leave you alone and not bite you or cause any problems. And I'm not sure what else I had after that, Lily.
That was it.
Here we have some links, and let me make mention of one thing about when you spoke about fleas in people's yards. Like I said years ago, everybody thought that what you had to do to control fleas and other things in your yard is go out there and spray your entire property with Sevin or malathion. That's not a really good idea. With fleas, there are some really good controls on the market now called IGRs, or insect growth regulators. And they're very, very specific. They make them for fleas, and all it affects is fleas, doesn't kill or hurt anything else. And the fleas will not develop all the way to adult fleas and lay eggs and make babies. So it does a really good job of breaking the life cycle. You have to be patient, because after you apply it, you're still going to see fleas for a couple days or even a week or so. But all of a sudden, the flea population is going to boom. It's going to crash and gets rid of the fleas. Very safe, very effective. So look for newer controls that are going to be very effective, and don't be thinking about the stuff that we did 20, 30 years ago. Please don't go in your shed and pull out the DDT or nicotine sulfate or things that have been off the market for many years. They were taken off the market for a reason. So if you need any more information about that, just contact us.
Okay.
Thank you.
And like I said, if you would like a PDF of this, email me, and we will put our emails at the end. And I'll let, yes, answering Sid's question in the chat. It was insect growth regulator, IGR. That's what you said? Yes.
Correct. We call them insect IGRs or insect growth regulators. They have them for fleas. They have them for roaches, I believe, and probably a few other pests. I think they may have them for certain crop pests also.
Okay.
But and the ones for
IGR.
fleas are very effective. They work really well.
That's good to know. All right. Since we're talking about blood-sucking insects today, that reminds me of Karen. So I'm going to invite Karen from Mosquito Control to let us know what we should be thinking about as far as mosquitoes in mid-March here in Central Florida.
All right, thanks, Lily. I'll be really brief. I was on your last bug class, kind of went over a little bit more about the mosquitoes in our area, the different types, and what to watch for based on where you're living. We also use a product here in Mosquito Control that prevents only the mosquitoes from breeding. It is a biological product that will stop them from hatching into an adult. We try to use a lot of products that are environmental, well, we use all environmentally friendly. We are regulated by the state. So we also, if you notice really quickly, you don't see our truck go down too often down your streets anymore. The approach is really to treat the problem the same way as Lily and Bill were going over today. Sometimes just spraying everything isn't going to fix it, because if you still have that water source where those mosquitoes are breeding from, they're going to continue to hatch because you actually haven't corrected the problem. You're just kind of knocking down the ones that have already hatched into flying adults. So if you're finding that you're having a mosquito problem in your at your home, please give us a call, go on our website. We have a Facebook page. You can put in a request to have us come out there. There is no charge. This is part of Hernando County services. It's real important that we stay on top of the mosquito population, because there is chances that we could get disease carrying mosquitoes in our area. So the better that we stay on top of it, the less of a chance that those disease carrying ones will affect our residents. So if you're finding you're having a lot of mosquitoes, go on our site, let us know. Our technicians will come out, they'll do a walk around your home and then work their way out to find that body of water. Sometimes the body of water can be a bottle cap, believe it or not. It doesn't have to be a big lake or a pond. It could be a potato chip bag that was left on the ground on a neighbor's property that is enough water sitting there to create a really irritating environment and could be possibly health related. So give us a call, our guys will come out, they'll find the problem, they'll correct the problem, they'll spray, spot spray if need be. We're a friendly office, we're out there to make sure that our residents are kept safe. I won't go too much into more other than the fact that we are heading into rainy season. So we are going to find a lot more bodies of water out there. So do a walk around your yard every few days, dump out any water that's been sitting, because that is the way those eggs hatch. They need that water for their entire egg larvae and cycle. Their hatching cycle needs the water. So if you dump that out, you've prevented them from hatching. So that's about it.
Could you give us your phone number? Could you give us your phone number?
Sure, I will put it right now in the chat so that you have it, but it is 352-540-6552. And I'll put that in there. And like I said, we are on Facebook and we are on the county. We have our county webpage as well. And you can put in a service request right from there. And then we'll go out usually within a day, sometimes 2 days. They are out there and they will treat that problem. Just remember, we don't treat no-see-ums. Unfortunately, I wish we did. They are a nuisance, they bite, they hurt, but they don't carry diseases, so therefore they are not part of what we treat. And there's really not much you can get to treat them. They're so tiny that it's really hard to get a product that affects those. So I will put the phone number and
Okay.
give us a call. I'm here in the office.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks,
Karen,
Lily.
and thank you, Bill, for today's kind of itchy messages that we brought to everybody today. I have up on the screen now our upcoming classes, my upcoming classes. I'll be back on a Wednesday schedule next week, and I will be with Frank Galdo from Pasco County. He has my job in Pasco County. We're going to talk about good bugs. We're not going to gross you out with bad bugs. And we're going to talk about how to bring in those pollinators. And he's going to talk specifically on how to design your yard, which would bring in some more pollinators. And I'm going to talk about maybe 10 or so easy to find plants that bring in the pollinators, like a starter pack. So that'll be, these are all at 10 o'clock. So that'll be next Wednesday, the 24th. The last Wednesday of the month, Bill and I will talk about 5 common gardening mistakes. And also we have nailed down our series for April, Rotted, Recycled, and Resurrected. We want to talk about life cycles in the landscape and how really, you know, death brings life. It's all part of the life cycle in the landscape. So these will be mostly Tuesdays in April. First one, we're going to start from the ground up with digging into soil science. And Brenda likes the butterfly talks better than the bedbug talks. Then we're going to talk about fungus. That's probably going to be Dr. Lester. Beetles is Dr. Lester. And then I'm kind of messing it up, but due to my own schedule, we're going to skip a week and be back on a Wednesday, but talk about how we can, the 3 things we learned about how we can, what we can do with it in our own yard. So that's what's coming up in the future. And thank you again for joining us today. And I'm sorry if everyone's going to be itchy for the rest of the day, but you know, those things are out there and we need to find the best environmentally friendly and efficient way to handle those situations. Oh, I just stopped sharing before our emails. So let me tell you, my email again is LillyB, LILLYB, 2 L's in the middle, at hernandocounty.us. And Dr. Lester has a much shorter, friendlier, more efficient email, as he always tells me, W Lester at ufl.edu. So if you have any of the bug questions, send those to him. And Karen just put her email in the chat for those who might be listening to this program later on. It's KMOJICA at hernandocounty.us. Okay, and Carol says, thank you much. It's very interesting. And she says, scratch, scratch. So at that, I'm going to thank everybody and we will, Dr. Lester is having his virtual plant clinic on Thursday at 10 o'clock.
Yes, we are every Thursday.
His Facebook, Hernando Extension. Is that what it's called?
The short
Hernando
name on
EXT.
Facebook is Hernando EXT, short for extension.
And you can watch the virtual plant clinic I hosted it last week and I said I would be there this week. And that has been determined to be a lie. So I can't make it this week. I have another meeting I have to go to, but I know you'll be in good hands with Dr. Lester. And so go see him on Thursday and we will see you again next week. Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
great.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Go take a shower. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.